How did the United States become so divided? Qahallah, Abanawi Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakadash. Forgive me for this morning, it's a little early right now. I just woke up and might be sounding a little roggy. But I just want to say double honors to the apostles and elders at Great Millstone who rule and teach well. Peace and salutations to the hopefully elect, to the Akim that's out there laboring in this truth with truth and sincerity. To the Akwaf that's listening and under reverence, total reverence under their husbands at home, learning from their husbands at home and understand and is learning to the best of their ability and trying. I say shalom, to the believers out there. I say shalom to you as well. I was looking over this article and it was talking about, why is United States and America so divided? You see what I'm saying? I was just reading this article and I kind of just wanted to share the article with you. And hopefully some edification come through it and we can bring out some little scriptures as well too. But I wanted to read this article. With you. It says, how did the United States ever become so divided? It says, 2021 is behind us. It has been another year of conflict, another year of anger, another year of division, right? A year of the, this word versus this word, the vaccinated versus the unvaccinated. It said the mask versus the unmasked, so that's division. Okay, so you got the vaccinated versus the unvaccinated. You got the mask, the ones who wear the mask, and the ones who's for wearing the mask, and the ones who's not for wearing the mask. It says of against them, a time of racists calling everyone else racist. Okay, so you got the ones that's in power to push their racism, calling other people racist, right? Which is the so-called white man. It says men calling themselves women and basically everybody accusing everyone of being the cause of everything that ails us, right? It says, how did we get here? How did the United States ever become so divided? It says some argue it's all political and that if we would just set our partisan differences aside, all would be well. But such thing is wishful at best and naive in the extreme. Right, pretty much you wishing upon a star. That's not gonna happen. It said the problem isn't the progressive. The problem right here. It said the problem isn't that progressives disagree with conservatives, Republicans with Democrats, or independents with libertarians. No political differences are not the cause of the disease. In fact, debating differing opinions isn't the issue at all. As an educator, I've always believed that the give and take of a good argument is actually healthy. It says, the disease plaguing our country isn't disagreement, but rather it is that we have completely abandoned any objective standard for deciding how to arbitrate our differences or, talk out our differences. The problem isn't that we disagree, but rather that our nation no longer has a rational or peaceful way of deciding who's right and who's wrong. The problem is that we have abandoned truth, which really was never built on truth, and really they had never been rational, they never have been a rational people. They always dealt not in reason, but in rule through force. So these people, considering the history, has never been a rational people. So it says the problem is that we have abandoned the truth, and this country and this nation was never built off truth. It was always built off the rape, rob, and murder of the so-called Native Americans, right? When Christoph Columbus, which is known as Christopher Columbus, when he came over, he didn't come in the spirit of truth. He came with a sword, and his sword was dipped in blood, bathed in blood. Okay? It says, in 1992, Rodney King brought our nation to its senses. Rodney King is a so-called black man who got beat up by the police, and that was in 1992. Now, mind you, before that, you had Emmett Till, all these different other cases where the police had hung, ripped off the penis of a so-called black man, all these cases. But all of a sudden in 1992, Rodney King brought our nation to its senses. No. They never were brought to their senses, Okay, it says in 1992, Rodney King brought our nation to his senses for just a brief moment when he uttered the now famous words, "Can't we all just get along?" Right? And no, we're not going to get along, and we never have gotten along, It said for over 200 years, the answer was yes. So pretty much he's saying for over 200 years, the answer was yes. Yes to what? Can we all get along? So 200 years ago, we was going through a lot of segregation. We was going through, Jim Crow just in the 1900s, early 1900s. All right. So how 200 years ago for the so-called black man, how were we all getting along? And this is a so-called black man that they actually beat up, right? So who was getting along? It wasn't us. Y'all was getting along. The so-called white man was getting along when we was in chains, when we was in slavery. When we was in chattel slavery, pretty much, with yokes upon our necks, right? And I challenge any one of you who has some type of understanding to Google yokes upon our necks, and you're going to see the so-called black man with chains and yokes upon our necks and in slavery, total subjection and servitude. So no, we wasn't over 200 years ago. We weren't getting along. We were in chains. We were on the cotton fields and the sugar cane fields. It says, sure, we had our struggles, you damn right, and many were no small significance. But for 2 centuries, we debated, argued, protested, and even fought our battles with self-evident truths as our standard of cohesion. America was never together, cohesion. They were never together, right? It said from generation to generation, we resolved to find a way to just get along. Yeah, through death. America has never been seen any like true peace. This is what they're trying to push against you, but America has never been have peace. And you've always went to war, pretty much. It says, And the way we did was to trust in truth as our judge and believe that it and only it would set us free. Come on now. All right. And who was y'all judge? In the God we trust? What God was that? Because if you trusted in the true living power, Yahweh, Yahweh Shai, you would have never put the apple of his eye into servitude. But you didn't do it. The Lord did it. All right? The Lord did it for our transgressions. But you furthered our affliction. Right? Read a little bit more. It said let me see. It says, the Declaration of Independence tell us, the Declaration of Independence, which still in your Constitution, the so-called black man is still deemed as 3/5 of a human being or a man. All right, his vote, meaning he's not a full man. You know, his vote pretty much doesn't count. It said the Declaration of Independence, independent from what? Independent from the Britons, you know, and the Englands, you know, that's what they were getting independent from. Okay, 1776, you know, they were independent from Britain. It said America was. It said tells us that such truth is bestowed upon us by our Creator, and that it's not made up by the crowd. It said truth is not a construct of a king, nor is it the product of public consensus. Truth is revealed from above, not made up from within. As St. Paul admonishes, it is written on every heart, on every human heart. It says, since the founding of America, all right, and America wasn't founded, how could you find something that, you know, had people living here already? Okay, the so-called 10 tribes, the 10 tribes of the so-called Native Americans were already on this land. And it's already known what happened when Christopher Colombo came here on these shores, on the West Indies and, you know, Central America, South America. Okay, it's already known. You know, they came with war, you know. Right? So they still going on with this narrative of America was founded. No, it was not founded. It was conquered. And you took captive those people who were actually in the land, but it was not founded. You know, our people was already over. The so-called Native Americans, which were the 10 tribes, are already over here on this land. And it tells you that in that movie, The Conquest of the 1492, the conquest of 1492, you know, where it tells you Christopher Colombo, which is Christopher Columbus, read the book of Esdras, second Esdras, to actually figure out how long it took to get over here. And he knew those people that was over here, he knew that was going to be slaves. They were going to have them as slaves. That's why he brought Hebrew translators with him when he came over here and sailed across the shores. It says, since the founding of America, the unalienable rights that form the building blocks of our society have found the source of God's revealed truth, not the government. The rejection of this fact, of this truth, goes hand in glove with our country's consequent loss of cultural unity and cohesion. We dare not to forget that John Adams, I believe that's John Quincy Adams, once famously warned our Constitution is made for a moral and religious people and is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. You hear that? Our Constitution is made for a moral and religious people. Now we talking about the so-called white man, and who's running the world right now, and who's running this country right now. He called them a moral and religious people, right? Meaning they have morals and beliefs, which we know that's not true. Okay, but I'm not gonna read the whole thing. I'm gonna get to you know, I'm gonna get to some scriptures right now. But if you want to check it out, you can read it. It's called "How Does America? I mean, how did the United States ever become so divided, man?" But yeah, they are divided, and they really always been divided. You know, you have one against the other, right? You got the Republicans against the Democrats, liberals against the conservatives. You got the vaccinated against the unvaccinated. You got the masked against the unmasked. Okay? All right? So it's been a divide, but that's what the Lord came to do. Put a divide. All right? Put a divide in the game. So I want to get to a couple scriptures, man. And I'm going to close this out. I ain't going to make this thing long. Get straight to the point. We're going to go to Isaiah 19. Isaiah chapter 19, we're going to read. Okay? Read a couple scriptures down. And then we're going to close this thing out. This is Isaiah. This is Isaiah chapter 19, verse 1. It says right here, the heading, it says, message to Egypt. Okay? And what's the modern day Egypt? Revelations chapter 11, verse 8, I believe. It tells us we're in Egypt right now. I challenge you to look at the back of the dollar bill. You're going to see the so-called Sphinx, the pyramids, with the eye in the on the top of it. All right? Everything is centered around Egypt. Okay? So right now, we're in spiritual Egypt right now. Revelation 8, we're going to get that after we read verse 1. But Revelation 8, 11 and 8 tells us that. All right? So it says right here, the burden of Egypt, right? For it said, behold, Isaiah 19 and 1. It said, the burden of Egypt. Behold, the Lord rideth upon a swift cloud. And that cloud is a chariot. And shall come into Egypt, right? And the idols of Egypt shall be moved at his presence. And the heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst of it, right? Okay, let's go to Revelations, if I will. So you can get that we talking about modern day Egypt. Okay. Are you talking about right now America? Revelations 11. Slack it. Okay, this is Revelations 11 and 8. It says, and their dead bodies shall lie in the streets of the great city. And what's that great city, man? Babylon the Great, all right? Babylon the Great is that great city. It said, which spiritually, right? Meaning spiritually, not physically, right? But spiritually, meaning the spirit of ancient Egypt will be in this great city. And what's the spirit? You had homosexuality, okay? Everything that lined up, almost everything that lined up with ancient Egypt, okay, is lining up with this modern day spiritual Egypt, right? And it said, their dead bodies shall lie in the street, right, of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt. where also our Lord was crucified. Right. So right now you have the alphabet community. All right. And that's what was going on in Sodom and Egypt. Right. So right now it's a spiritually, right now in America, is spiritually Sodom and Egypt. Okay. All right. It says, verse 2. It says, and I will set, right? And I will set the Egyptian against the Egyptian, right? So it's pretty much saying I will set the American against the American, since, we can equate that to today's time, right? The Egyptian against the Egyptian. But now, since we are in spiritually Egypt, Sodom and Egypt, we're going to say the American against the American, right? So you can use that for in real time as today. It said, I will set the Egyptian against the Egyptian, which would be the American against the American, right? And they shall fight everyone against his brother, right? And that's what's going on right now with all these differences, They're fighting one another, okay? And that's not really a good thing, And this is how you know you can't stand if you have those differences. It said, and everyone against his neighbor, city against city, right? You have some cities and some states who's for the shutdown, and you have some cities and some states who's not for the shutdown, right? You have some cities and some states who's for the mask and who's mandating the mask, wearing masks, and you have some that's not mandating, And so it's a political divide, within the United States, cities and states. It's a political divide and the fight against right there. Right? You got the Republicans against the Democrats, the liberals against the conservatives. The so-called black man against the so-called white man. You know what I'm saying? Right? Which none of them, they're not black, and we're not black, and they're not white. We need to get off of that narrative of white and black, right? So that's what it's saying, right? It said, I will set the Egyptian against the Egyptian, which is the American against the American. And the Egyptians, the so-called Edomites, man, are the modern day Egyptians, man. God, how could we prove that? Let's go to Joel. What's that? Joel 3. Let's go to Joel chapter 3. Oh shit. Let's go to Joel chapter 3. I believe. Joel chapter 3. Right, Joel chapter 3. Right, I believe so. Joel chapter 3, verse 19. It says, Egypt shall be a desolation, right? This is linking Egypt, the modern day Egyptians. The modern day Egyptians, which are the so-called Americans, right? Is linking, and is also linking the ancient Egyptians with the so-called Americans, right? It says, Egypt shall be a desolation, right? And Edom shall be a desolate wilderness, right? Why? Because this place is going to be a wilderness after those nukes hit it. After the thermonuclear warfare, it's going to be desolate, right? There's nobody going to be dwelling here anymore but land creatures, and birds, right? It says, Egypt shall be a desolation and Edom shall be a desolate. And that's linking, right? That's linking the ancient Egyptians, right? And to the modern Egyptians, which is Americas, and it's linking also Edom, which are the Edomites. It's telling you right there through prophecy, right, that the Edomites will be ruling in the latter end, right? It says, and Edom shall be a desolate wilderness for the violence against the children of Judah, because they have shed innocent blood in their land, right? So they shed the blood of the so-called black man, right? In America, man. Right? The police brutality, you know? All these other ways, man. Let's not forget slavery, man. We tend to forget that. Right? And how is it going to be desolate? Like I said, man, that thermonuclear war. And of course, the fire from the chariots when our Lord come back. Right? So, you know, with that lets you know right there, it's linking the two together, man. And the so-called the modern day Pharaoh right now is in current times is what's his name? Joe Biden, man, which is the so-called president. Right? The so-called president, man. Let's jump up to 1. Let's see what this says. Joel 1. It says, for behold, in those days, right? And in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, right? I will also gather all nations and bring them down into the valley of what? Jehoshaphat or Jehoshaphat, all right? All right? And will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage. You know what I'm saying? Heritage is an inheritance, something that you pass down, something you give, you know, to your sons, you know. It said, and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land, right? So the so-called black man has been in servitude, you know, across the 4 corners of the earth, right? It says, and they have cast lots for my people, and have given a boy for an harlot, and sold a girl for wine, that they might drink. So isn't that what happened, you know, during the so-called slave trade on the auction blocks when they was coming over here, you know, selling our people on the auction blocks? Okay? You tell me this is not, we didn't serve slavery, man. And this is exactly what happened. Right? Let's go back to Isaiah 19, if you will. It says, Isaiah chapter 19, 3. It says, and the spirit of Egypt, it says the spirit. Remember Revelations 11 and 8, right? This is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt. It said, and the spirit shall fall in the midst thereof, and I will destroy the counselor thereof, and they shall seek to the idols, and to the charmers, and to them that have familiar spirits, and to the wizards. So that's what's going on. They gonna go to, you know, the charmers, you know, and try to figure out what's going on. They shall seek the idols. They're gonna run to their idols, right? And their idols not gonna give them no answer because they can't answer them, and they never could answer. Right? And to them that have familiar spirits, that's what's going to happen. Right? So, when this thing fall, man, modern day Egypt is gonna be destroyed, man. Point blank, period. Gonna be destroyed. Right? It says, verse 17, and the land of Judah shall be a terror unto Egypt, right? Every one that maketh mention thereof shall be afraid in himself, because the counsel of the Lord of hosts, right, which he hath determined against it. Right? What's this? It said the counsel. Come on. It say Let me see. Right. So that's pretty much it on that. Let's go to Mark chapter 3. Well, first we can go to Matthew 12. Let's do that. All right. Start at 25, I believe. Gone. All right. It's so. All right. This is Matthew chapter 12, verse 25. It says, and Yahushua knew their thoughts and said unto them, every kingdom divided against itself, is brought what? To desolation. Didn't it say in Isaiah that it's going to be a desolation? Right? Every kingdom, it said, I knew their thoughts and said unto them, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation. Right? Right? And then they say a kingdom divided by itself, a kingdom by is to not stand. It just said it was going to put the Egyptian against the Egyptian, which is the American against the American. And it says, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation. And every city, right, or house divided against itself shall not stand, right? It's not going to be able to stand, right? So if you have division, one against the other, even in the actual house, you got, if y'all not on the same page, when it comes to running the house, guess what? One gonna be pulling up one way and the other gonna be pulling another. How could it stand? Because you're not in order. You separated in your views. You separated in your thoughts and your plans. So it's not gonna be able to stand. It has no foundation, pretty much. Let's look at the word stand. Shall not stand. Yeah, let's look at the word stand. All right. Yeah.
Strong's G 2476. Histemi.
Histemi. Right? It's to cause, to make, it said to cause or make to stand, to place, to put, set, right? To bid, to stand by, set up. It said in the presence of others, in the midst, before judges, before members of the Sanhedrin. It said to place. All right, here we go. This is the problem. This is the point. To make firm, right, is to fix, establish, right? So if you rooted in your house, you see what I'm saying? You'll be able to stand. Why? Because y'all on the same page. It's firm. It said to cause a person or a thing to keep his or its place, to stand, be kept intact, right? You hear that? A family, that's what it say. A family, a kingdom, to escape in safety. So the house, the kingdom should be considered as safety, man. But how is it safe when it's divided? Right? It says to establish a thing cause it to stand, to uphold, right? Or sustain the authority of force of anything, right? So it'll be able to sustain if you're together and you're not divided, you're a strong force, and it'll be able to withstand, the impact, if any problem that occurs, within that, it'll be able to stand firm, right? Right? So to stand right near, to stand by or near, to stop, stand still, we pretty much made the point. But all it says, to be of a steadfast mind, right? Meaning you sure about what's going on. It says of quality, one who does not hesitate, does not waver, right? There we go, right? But how could you do that in a divided kingdom, right? You can't. How could you do that in a divided kingdom, right? Let's go back to Matthew. All right, Matthew 12, 25. It says, let me exit out of here. So it says right now, and if verse 26, and if Satan casts out Satan, how can Satan cast out Satan, man? Right? How could the wicked cast out wicked? Right? The whole, the whole embryo of what we know as the United States, the foundation, it's not a foundation. Right? It was built on rape, rob, and murder, right? So of course it's not going to be able to stand, right? And they are under the alliance of Satan, man. So this is saying in 26, and if Satan casts out Satan, he is divided against himself, right? This is how you know. You're under the influence of Satan, because you're going to be divided, right? He said, how shall then the kingdom stand? Right? How could it stand when you're divided against yourself? You're not rooted. Okay? You're not rooted. So how can Satan cast out Satan? Right? Let's go to Mark 3. I believe it says the same thing. That's the point that we're going to get up out of here. I want to make it simple today, this morning. Mark chapter 3, we're going to start at 24. All right, it says, not 3, 21. Right? Yeah. Mark 3 and 24 says, and if a kingdom be divided against itself, right? That kingdom cannot what? Look at that word stand. Right? Let's look up divided. Let's look at this word divided. Yeah. Be divided. Let's look up divided. Merizo.
Strong's G 3307. Merizo.
Right? Merizo. It says to divide. It says what? To separate or separate into parts. Cut into pieces. Right? It's telling you right there. It said to divide. So that's what happens, man. So how could you stand when you're divided, when you're separated? It said to divide into parties, to split into factions, to distribute, right? A thing among people bestowed in part, right? So you're not rooted. If you separate in your understanding, separate in your morals, you got one woman, a man and a woman in the house. One worship Satan and the other worship, the Most High. Where they gonna go? Where they gonna go? What's the root? Let me see if there's a root on here. All right. A part due, assigned to one, lot, destiny. Okay, one of the constituent part of a whole. Partly. Right, in part, partly, in a measure, right? To some degree, right? How you gonna stand when you're not full? Right? Come on, that's pretty much it, man. That's pretty much it. Let's finish this out and we go. Lord willing. It says, Mark chapter 3, verse 24. It says, right, Mark 3 and 23, it says, and he called them unto him and said unto them in parables, how can Satan cast out Satan? It said, and if a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand, right? And if a house be divided against itself, that house can't stand, right? And if Satan rise up against himself and be divided, he cannot stand, but hath an end. And what's that end? What's that end? What's that end? Let's go to 2nd Esdras. Let me show you that end right now. 2nd Esdras 6 and 9. What is the end? 2nd Esdras chapter 6, verse 9 is this. It says, for Esau is the what? The end of the world. And Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. Right? And that's the end. And that's the end of this lesson. And with that, we give all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakal Kadash. Okay? Y'all take care, man. On to the next lesson. Shalom.